What's up, YouTube? How is everybody doing? We are live. We are live. We are live. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. It's another edition of the Weekly Lawn and Garden Show. I had to get the kids to bed there. Apparently, I can see the live show right now and how far it is behind from where I'm actually talking. So kind of gives me an idea of what is actually going on here. Apparently, it's way different than I actually thought. Anyway, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to get started. This is going to be an exceptionally fun show today, not because I have anything planned, but just because we get to have a show today. For those of you that don't know, my name is Matt Martin. I go by the Grass Factor on YouTube. My area of comfortability in speaking about things is turf grass management. We can get into some other things, like some annuals, maybe a few perennials, maybe a tree or two, a woody bush. But really, what it comes down to, this is all about lawn care. This is all about turf management. My career has always been on the lawn care side of things. I had a brief stint in golf back before the economy went to the bottom in 2008, 2009. So I've been in lawn care since, and that's kind of where I've always stayed. So that's what I like to be talking about. In that regard, man, I tell you what, I am happy to be here. Let's see who got started in here first today. And this is interesting. We have a new one. We have the Altman Lawn Show who got in here as number one. That's what I'm talking about. Big shout out to Altman Lawn Show. We had John T coming in at number two who said, please do not mention my Kentucky Wildcats. Well, I'm sorry, John T. I didn't mean to bring it up now, but I'm going to have to. Sorry about your Kentucky Wildcats. At least you're not a volunteer fan. As I always say, we know how painful it is to be all vol this kind of this year here. So I feel your pain in that, even though we are, it's still the SEC, so it can't be that bad. You know what I'm saying? Sean, I did not get the lung transplant yet. However, I do seem to be on the up and up. I took some guafenicin at the recommendation of my doctor. My doctor said he wasn't too worried about my lungs. Sounded pretty normal. Asked me to drink a lot more water and stay hydrated and dial down the stress. Whoa, I accidentally turned the sound on in the background there. If I'm coming through too loud tonight, let me know and I will turn things down. I'm playing with the sound settings right now because I did not like the way the sound sounded last week. And if I could get a microphone to stay still, I would be really happy about that too, but I don't know if it's going to or not. We'll see what happens. We're playing all this by ear. Okay, for those of you that are tuning in for the first time, this is typically how this goes. This is a question and answer format show. It's an open format, meaning you ask the questions, I provide the answers. That's how I like to do things. If I get in here and I script it and I have some sort of way that this is actually going to turn around, it turns out a little too scripted and less like a show and more like a performance. And that's not really what this is about. This is an opportunity to ask an industry professional. Now I'm on the professional side of product development, research, innovation. I used to be on the professional side of actual turf management and lawn care. So, like I said, if you have questions, the whole premise of this show is to answer them. Sean, I'm gonna enjoy this water for you, sir. Thank you for the $4.99. Fridge water is the best water, if I've never said it before. Okay, so it's looking like it's time to go ahead and jump into the real show here. So we're going to move on to that part of the show that I call the roll call. First and foremost, big shout out to Altman Lawn Show for coming in first and being here at the show before the show. But also, real quick, a big shout out to... Wait a second. I got messages coming in on Facebook and all kinds of stuff here. Big shout out to Lushy Lawns, my Lush Factor up there in the Mass, and Kurt Bow big woo-ha. Can we get a shout out in the chat to Kurt Bow? So we just type in the chat, Kurt Bow is the funniest man alive. That's all we need to do. Everybody needs to put it in the chat. Kurt Bow is the funniest man alive. KURTBO is the funniest man alive. That was for you, Lushy. All right, we're going to keep going in here. Early on, John T., Sean Smith, John Ficken, Terry Finch, Richard Nettles, Ken Harbison, Marshall Ho. My friend, sir, Marshall, I do not recognize your name. I wonder if you are new here. If you are, welcome aboard the Soul Train. I'm here to learn and grow my knowledge of lawn care and soil development. That's exactly what we like to talk about. Marshall, if there's anywhere you would like me to start on answering questions for you, please feel free to put them in the chat, and I will in the chat, and I will get to them as I get to them. Thank you, sir. Kenny Cooper's here. Real Dad is here. The hungry Southerner. VW 1972. Bad boy is old. We got St. Louis the Fishing Professor's here for number 2. I'm glad you're back, sir. I'm telling you, one of these days we're going to trade places where you get to host my show and I get to host your show. Anyone know how to get the stain off from Humic 12 and RGS products? The stain my fence and water will not take it off. The only thing I know that will work is, 1, don't spray your fence because it'll light it up. But 2, toilet bowl cleaner, something that has like hydrochloric acid in it will work. But if you already have a stain on your fence, I do not know how to help you there. We got the Gravy Lookout in the house. We got Chris Robinson. Look at that. It said spray some Lysol on it. There you go. Toby Howard is here. Symbiont 01 from Central Texas. Damon Williams. Velvet Hammer dropping the hammer. Lush Lawn says the pats are great. We got lawn tips all the way from the other side of the planet. If you drew an arrow directly across through to the other side of the planet, it would come up somewhere in the vicinity of lawn tips. I think. I don't know. I may be making stuff up, but I am glad you are here, Ben Sims. Strike It Rich is here. Cheryl, she's shed already burned down. John McHale, Rob Hawkins, Matt Kaczynski, New York Costco. Oh, man, this is good. We got Jeremy Swatkins in the house. That's what I'm talking about. Sandman's Dreamland. Welcome, sir. Glad to see you here. Non-Mastery Productions is in the house. Mr. A.A. Ron. Robert Butler. Man, look at all these people here that I'm saying. That's what I am talking about. Kurt Bow is very funny. Kurt Bow is not as funny as you, Maddie. Okay. I think I see some questions here, so I'm going to skip up a little bit, and I'm going to start at the beginning. If I do not get to your question, feel free to answer it again. Bear with me because I'm starting up at the beginning of the questions, and it's going to take me a little time to answer them and get down to the bottom, so be patient. And also remember, I'm on about a 30-second delay from where you are in case I need to ban someone for saying something disgusting. Because it happens. I'm telling you right now, it happens. All right, we got a Mountain View turf-type tall fescue overseed in the Kentucky Bluegrass in New Jersey coming in after a week. Want to blitz with nitrogen and T-neck soon. Good idea on new turf-type tall fescue. Gabriel, I would not be concerned about the T-necks unless you already have an existing stand of turf that you need to retard that growth. Otherwise, then I think it's a great idea. Go ahead, do your fall nitrogen blitz. And get ready because you are going to be on fire next year. All right, we're going to say anyone using new techniques or products, any new techniques or products you'll be using or excited about starting for the upcoming overseeding season or for the next year. Ryan, yes, we've got lots of stuff in the works. In fact, I just produced another video today, at least on paper. I will have to record it next. And we're going to be talking about the direction we go. And, I kind of talked about this when I was on the live stream with Picture Perfect Lawn Maintenance. If you missed that, I will try and put a link to it in the channel here. But I did a live stream with them, and, I'll leave it like this. As a company now, and the company I'm with, it's, Carbon Earth, we pride ourselves on developing granular products, and we don't want to be stuck or trapped into one way of thinking or one set of products or even develop just one program. I feel like our role as a company is to be as innovative as possible and to spend significant amounts of time researching not just what's happening in the United States, but what's happening on a global scale, and take advantage of the strongest suits and developments that are taking place on a global scale, and then applying them to what we do at Carbon Earth to bolster our own product line. Because at least for me, I am never satisfied. And it's the same thing when I sprayed lawns. I was never satisfied. I feel like if I ever felt like I was on the top, I would have nothing left to work for. So I will always, always, always strive to be better and to be better and to be better. And so as a company with Carbon Earth, that is what we are always doing, is looking for the next best thing we can do with our product line. And I will say that we've had good success with Carbon X and X Green and X Dart right now, and looking at what's going to be coming up, and this is going to be 2020. We actually have a lot of big new releases that are going to be coming up. That was totally the wrong one. Okay, here we go. I'm trying to do this and talk at the same time. But yes, we do. We have a lot of things that are going to be coming up over starting in 2020, but you will not see a whole lot until then, just because we're still refining our manufacturing process. What are you doing, the Hungry Southerner? This is your prepayment to avoid being banned. I am not going to ban you, but I will cough it out. So yes, I'm very excited, and I'm going to have a video coming out this week, Ryan H., that talks specifically about where we are going to be moving in the biostimulant world, because there's just new research coming out of products that are going to be just way more exciting than what we've traditionally done in the past. So we're ready to take it to the next level as soon as it becomes. There's a lot of logistics involved, of import export type stuff that has to take place. So as we get all of those logistics figured out, incorporating them into our products. Let's see here. GF on one screen, Eagles on the other. The grass factor. Chad Hooper said, I've been fighting what I thought was centipede invasion all summer in my Bermuda. To my embarrassment, it was Florida puzzly. What's my best method to eliminate the puzzly? That is a good question, and I typically do not have to deal with it, and therefore I do not have an answer off the top of my head. It seemed like the most commonly, I don't know, I'm going back, just kind of scanning my brain of different things here. It seems like, I don't know. I was thinking tribute, but I may be wrong. I do not recall, but I believe tribute. Celsius looks like I just hopped over here to the Lawn Forum at thelawnforum.com, and it looks like Celsius does an exceptional job of getting it knocked out in Bermuda grass. So I'm going to head and go with that. If Celsius will work, tribute will work. It's going to be a lot cheaper to run Celsius than it would be tribute. Hammered the yard with X-Dart today. Smelled great. That's what I'm talking about. Kurt Cherry says, Matt, just bought a new to me used reel mower. Have turf type tall fescue. Just seeded Kentucky bluegrass. Will I kill quite a bit of the fescue with my mowing at 1 inch? Kurt, it really depends on where you live. If you were here in Knoxville, yeah, you would probably knock it out. And even what you didn't kill, it would be so unaesthetically pleasing that you would want to go ahead and kill it. And at that point, you may want to, calculate your risk and do an application of something like methylfuron methyl. However, depending on where you are, it might actually phase itself out, or it may actually also adapt to it. So going back to the Lawn Forum, there's a guy over there, the G-Man. G-Man has some no mix that has some turf type tall fescue in it, and it is tolerating his low height cut really well. Also, if you've seen Ryan Knorr's videos where he's maintaining perennial ryegrass, he has some turf type tall fescue in there, and it's actually tolerating it really well too. So depending on where you are, will dictate the tolerance. This drought and heat wiped out my rhizomatous tall fescue in the last week. Will it bounce back with better weather or plan on reseed? Greg, it probably went dormant. I doubt it's completely locked out. Completely knocked out. I'm pretty certain it just shut down and went dormant. I would let weather improve a little bit, assess the situation, and then make the determination whether or not you actually do need to completely reseed. I would go ahead and plan on an overseed, light rate, 3 to 5 pounds per thousand in general, because it is fescue. Started my aeration seeding and put down some X-Star. I had Pythium issues all summer. What should I do to manage it moving forward, especially because I have to water so much for seeding? The lawn fix, what I would look at is 2 products. So mefenoxam as the first one. Mefenoxam is the old standard for Pythium management. And then the next one would be Segway. Segway is kind of the new up and coming Pythium management tool. In the meantime, in between rotating those applications, I would look at something called phosphite. Phosphite is the product of the reaction between phosphorus acid and potassium hydroxide. It's actually a source of potassium. It is not a source of phosphorus. The phosphite is not plant available, therefore the plant does not use it as phosphorus. However, with the application of it, it has been shown to resist some of the effects of Lushy. What are you doing, sir? I know you got Kurt Bow and he's over there dropping all kinds of hilarity on you, but we're not doing this tonight, Aaron. We are not doing it. And you are not Aaron. You are the AR, the ARAN, Aran. Gosh. But phosphite does help with some internal plant resistance to the blight of Pythium. So phosphite, mefenoxam, Segway. Those are your 3 choices. Better quit that, Aaron. North Carolina in the house. Hola, senor. ¿Cómo estás? I'm here. I don't feel tardy, said Sammy Ayala. Didn't realize Rick was 75. Anyway, dibs on volume is good. Wafanazin, 2 ounce. What? Wafanazin? Mefenoxam. MEFENOXAM. I put that in the chat. Just yell louder into the microphone. That's what I'm saying. Kitty Cooper says, wondering if you read my email I sent Saturday morning to your Carbon Earth email about the flooded lawn. Actually, yes, I did. And Kenny, I honestly did not know exactly how to answer that. And so I started down the wormhole of researching it. But in a gist, I'll kind of give everybody a rundown about what you said in the email. So in his backyard in particular, the whole thing is underwater right now. And he was asking about what happens to the soil and to the plants after it's been underwater for a certain amount of time. Also, with it depositing so much silt into the existing soil, what is kind of the next step in, trying to get something established. So this is kind of my first thought is, does it hurt microbial activity? Yes, that portion it does, because it's going to be in an oxygen-free environment, right? There's very, very little oxygen. There's not going to be a whole lot they can do. So I would say not all of them, but probably a decent population of them will go down. Those that are going to be more tolerant of anaerobic conditions will proliferate. Because you think there are plants that actually thrive in underwater. So there are still microbes that thrive underwater. It probably just looks a lot different than what you see above water on dry land. The second part of that is how long can it be underwater? Probably not very long. I'm going to say anywhere from hours to 1 day to 24 hours. Anything over that, then the potential for significant loss of life in terms of either vegetation, like plants, and even soil life, it's all going to start happening really quickly there. As far as building those back up, yes, anything carbon-based is going to help that get going. A quick sugar source like molasses is going to work really well. An organic fertilizer, malorganite, chicken litter, something like that will help. And I wouldn't be too concerned about just the loss of nutrients. Yes, you will lose some nutrients should you replace those. Yes, you're going to lose probably more NP and K than you would like metals that tend to tie up and bond really strongly in the soil. So I wouldn't be too worried about replacing the micronutrient content, and also with the depletion of, I'm sorry, with the deposit of silt that comes in there. I would say that would, basically reinforce the amount of micros you have in the soil. So at that point, it's just getting things back and going and up to life. So I would do a balanced NPK fertilizer, and preferably one that is organic base, just to stimulate some of that life to come back. And it won't take long. Once everything's moving in the right direction, probably 24, 48 hours, maybe 72 hours, you're back to normal, like nothing ever happened again. Let's see. What's going on, Super TA? Just finished seeding my first elite Kentucky bluegrass seed. Fingers crossed and sprinkler timers locked in for the next 30 days or so. Excellent, excellent. With soil test results, how do you determine if nutrients are plant available? Eric, you can't. So there's lots of different methodology to soil testing. If you did like purely a water extraction, that might give you your closest, might give you your closest interpretation of what is actually plant available. But in reality is that the plants always typically find a way to make something available as long as it's in the soil. So when you have, a Malic 3 extraction done and it gives you the total amount of nutrients that exists in your soil, or through acid digestion or something, however you come up with that total of what you have in the soil, that is how I would operate, because plants are actually really special in the sense that if there is something there that it needs and it doesn't have access to, it will actually emit organic acids through the root tips to solubilize some of these things that may not be plant available. So what's more important is that you do have balance across. And if you are deficient in something, make sure you apply it in a form that is immediately available to correct any kind of symptomatic deficiencies you may see. I have questions, but I need someone with a good-looking lawn to answer them. That's not me, so I cannot help you, nor will I help you. The lawn fakes button my shirt for YouTube flags me for inappropriate behavior. They actually flagged me last week, so this is just to double down on it. Hey, man, Soil Test recommends 13 pounds of dolomitic lime for pH and 0.5 per 1,000 of magnesium. At that rate, I'll be about 1.5 pounds per 1,000 of magnesium. Is that okay? Yes, I would start with your dolomitic lime, give it some time. And you got to remember, dolomitic lime is going to be a carbonate. So it's not going to be immediately available. Magnesium will be soon, but it won't exactly be there. So I would start with just your dolomitic lime, give it some time. If you notice any kind of weird yellowing taking place, then you can go ahead and get down maybe another, half pound of magnesium or something like that to supplement. But start with your dolomitic, gauge the response to the turf. If you want to try and apply a little bit of, say Sulpamag or something to get some additional magnesium down, by all means, you definitely can. I have not looked at what's going on over here, Lushy. What are you doing now? I like it when you sweat. It makes me really uncomfortable. Makes me really uncomfortable, Lushy. Gypsum mix into hard clay, does it actually help relax the compaction? Jeremy Swatkins, no, it does not. And there is countless research that shows that. So typically when you're dealing with clay, you're dealing with just a tight soil structure in general. Adding calcium sulfate to a tight soil structure does not mean it is going to loosen it up. At that point, you're going to have to do something to alter the tilth. Why people typically recommend that is that calcium is a good flocculator. It can cause soil colloids, clay colloids to bind together and create larger particle sizes, which ultimately would open up more free-flowing space for water and whatever to move through. Calcium's a great flocculator, but in that instance, it's very, very never going to really provide you any symptomatic relief of that. So your better bet would be to do something like aerify, collect your cores, and replace with sand. Fill those pore spaces with sand to hold them open. The other thing would be to establish the most robust root system as you possibly could, so the root cycling effect can take place, and your roots would do a better job of busting up that clay more so than an application of calcium or really any product would. Diego Diaz Facin. I do not know the numbers for the next Powerball, sir. I'm sorry. Will dolomite raise pH above 7? I had a soil test of 4.9, and NCDOA said 75 pounds per thousand or 36 40-pound bags for 19,000 square feet. I've never put that much down. Worry. Rob, you can put that much down, and it will take a year before it even corrects your soil pH, especially at a 4.9. That's going to be really hard to move. So the recommendations of 75 pounds per thousand sounds exactly right. That sounds normal. Is that going to raise it above a 7? Probably not. In fact, if I had to guess, you're probably going to end up having to go closer to 100, 125 pounds before you can get that up close to a 7. Marshall, I apologize, man. You have asked questions before. I missed it. For my backyard, the magnesium would be even higher at 27 pounds per thousand, and results call for 0.5 pounds of magnesium per 1,000. I wouldn't sweat it too much, Robert. I know you're looking for an exact answer here, but in reality, I would just put down my dolomitic lime, you give it a year, test it unless you see some deficiencies taking place, and then go ahead and apply magnesium sulfate or something. But I wouldn't overcomplicate it. Start with the dolomitic lime, and then retest and see what you need to do. Hey, Ron. Okay, let's see. Man, the chat is just on fire tonight. I'm having a really hard time keeping up here. Okay, got some fungus damage. Again, caught it early, so not too bad. I got some newer sod established just besides the damage. Seems undisturbed. Why is that? And there's a million and one reasons why that could be. There's a lot of different reasons why that could be. It'd be impossible for me to work through all of them right now. FERT business is tough. This is to help educate people on how to read labels. Had an email over the weekend where someone applied 3 pounds per square foot of Carbon X to the lawn. That's how that story went. Hello, AAA Huskers. Glad you're here, sir. Hey, I have a ground logic similar to the Triumph, but hate handling on the hills. Have you tried anything different that you may prefer? Jesus Vasquez, yes. I much prefer the Triumph to the ground logic for hills. The Triumph handles hills incredibly, especially the newest Triumph, the 2019 Triumph, is just unbelievably efficient at handling hills. It's not, the ground logic is not even comparable, nor is the Z Spray. They just can't go where that machine just cannot go where I can get a Permagreen. I can outwork those in my location here in Knoxville, where I deal with hills day in and day out. I mean, they're not Colorado hills, obviously those are some real deal mountains. I've got basically big ass hills compared to Colorado, but I could outwork Z sprays all day long with my Permagreen. There's just no doubt about it. In fact, I used to see them when I'd be riding around town, all of them, treating yards with their Z spray in their trailer because they can't ride that property. And I rode every property every round with my Permagreen. If I'm going to spend that kind of money on a piece of equipment, I want to use it to the absolute end of the earth and back. And the Permagreen allowed me to do that, where I continue to watch guys with Z sprays, out there having to hand spray yards because their machine slides down hills. Sorry. Humic 13 definitely won't come off shirts. My NASA shirt still has a stain on the back. Thank you for taking care of my issue with the first bags. Carbon X came out. You're very welcome, Francisco. You're very welcome. Could be worse. You could be a Miami Dolphins fan. I don't know what that means. I do not watch pro football. Also, the answer for those who have been stuck in 2017 and prior LCN, the only answer that is correct is Milo. That's false. Dropping the pen hammer. I have moss issues in both a lawn reno with baby grasses and in established lawn. How do I eradicate that garbage? Well, the best way to eradicate it is to get something growing on it. Moss is opportunistic, meaning that it senses space, therefore tries to fill it. So the more dense you can get your turf grass, the greater the chance you will have of controlling your moss. If you need to knock it down in the short term, I would use something like an iron source, like ferrous sulfate, and go at it with a fairly high rate. If you need something with a little more oomph, maybe you could go with Quicksilver. Carfentrazone would do a good job too. Ban this. Go Bills. 2-0, baby. Matt, double question. I went out to grab some fert today and they were all sold out. I ended up grabbing a generic 10-10-10 that was labeled for garden use. The label says that in breakdown is 6% urea, 4% ammoniacal nitrogen. What's ammoniacal nitrogen, and should I look for all urea the next time? Ammoniacal nitrogen could be ammonium sulfate. It could be ammonium nitrate. Ammoniacal nitrogen is my preferred nitrogen source. Urea is okay. Nothing wrong with it. It's just you tend to get a faster response. And sometimes you get a 2-for-1 with ammoniacal nitrogen in the form of ammonium sulfate. VW 1972 bug. If you have never, hop on over to the YouTube, type into the search bar ammonium sulfate, and I should have the very first result there that is ammonium sulfate, best nitrogen for lawns, all about ammonium sulfate as the first link, and that will tell you any and everything you need to know. But basically, you get not only nitrogen with it, nitrogen that's already in an NH4 form, but you also get sulfate, and sulfate is immediately plant available as sulfur, which also leads to increased chlorophyll production and ultimately greener grass. So not only do you get a faster stimulation of plant growth, but you also get a secondary nutrient that is going to allow for actually an additional uptake of iron and manganese, therefore producing more chlorophyll, giving you darker turf. Also, on a pound-for-pound basis, why was this generic fertilizer so much cheaper than other options like a 12-24-10? Because there's so much less fertilizer in the bag than a 12-24-10. So a triple 10 is only has about 30% fertilizer in the bag. The rest of it is, and that's not because you add up 10 and 10 and 10, right? So you think about urea is 46% nitrogen. There's only 6% in that bag. That means there's very, very, very little nitrogen in that bag. If it's ammonium sulfate, that ammonium sulfate's a 2100. If it's only 4% in the bag, that means it's only making up like 5% of the bag. So, so it is so cheap because there's really nothing in it. Whereas if you start getting up to a 12-24-10, now you've got, that's probably going to have some urea, some monoammonium phosphate or diammonium phosphate, and a little bit of potash in it. And the potash in that, 12-24-10 could be potassium sulfate. Potassium sulfate at bulk purchasing may cost you $700-800 a ton. So just a bag of 0052 may cost, and this is buying at bulk, off a barge somewhere as a commodity, it may cost you $20 a bag, and that's not even bagged. It costs you $20 a bag. So, that's, and you start putting, 15% of that into a bag, and then you've got 30% of monoammonium phosphate in the bag, and the monoammonium phosphate is going to be expensive. And then you add a little bit of urea on top of it, and you combine all those together, and then you got an expensive fertilizer. Whereas the triple 10, you have very, very, very little in the bag, and you got the cheapest ingredients possible in the bag, and you got a lot of filter. So there we go. That's how it's so cheap. Matt, is there a good product or nutrient for building resistance to disease rather than applying fungicides? Curious if there's a method through soil or plant health. No, there's not a good product in terms of nutrients, though. Yes, probably the most underutilized one would be potassium. However, some of the new biostimulant stuff, it's not necessarily pointing towards disease resistance, but it is pointing to fighting abiotic stress. And the more a plant is affected by abiotic stress or biotic stress, the more prone it may be towards developing disease. So it could be like a 1-2 little punch there. So I can't recommend anything specifically other than testing your soil and making sure you are capitalizing on any deficiencies. And if you're ever trying to push with one particular nutrient, say you're wanting to thicken something up and you're going to be pushing with nitrogen, make sure you are supplementing with plenty of potassium to make up for the amount of engine drive that's taking place from that nitrogen. So some of the newer hybrid Bermudas may be pulling for every 2 pounds of nitrogen you apply, you're going to be pulling almost 1.8, 1.5 pounds of potassium out of the soil. So, that's almost a 1-to-1 there that it's actually requiring to grow that Bermuda grass. I saw one on Patriot Bermuda grass, and for every 6 pounds of N you applied, you were pulling 4 to 5 pounds of potassium out of the ground and 1 pound of phosphorus. So a massive amount of potassium is being pulled, particularly by Bermuda grass. Fescue isn't that much farther behind it, fescue and bluegrass. So if you're applying, we'll say like 2 pounds of actual nitrogen to that, you are pulling 1 pound of potassium out of the soil. And if you're not replacing that 1 pound of potassium in the soil, that means you're creating deficiencies, a deficient environment. And in the instance that the plant does go potassium deficiency, you're going to see a massive increase in disease. Banging my microphone. Popo and Sun Lawn Care, no sir, I am not going to be at Lawncology this year. Ryan H., what are your opinions on adding iron, and if you should do liquid apps as a micro or get granular with percent of iron in it? Would you see the most benefit in cool or warm season? Iron is iron. It's just oh, my wife brought me we've got 24 ounces of ice cold fluid here. Thank you, Asami. That was great. That was exactly what I needed right there. Iron is a needed nutrient, but you have to remember what you see in actually greening the turf is almost kind of like an artificial thing that's happening because you're forcing iron into the plant, because you're forcing the plant to flood the leaves with chlorophyll. That's why it lasts for a short amount of time. Typically I like doing just a little bit of iron, and liquid is always going to be more efficient in that sense that spraying iron, you'll get a much more drastic response than you would through granular. However, you can apply it if you have the right granular with an acidifier in it. You can increase the amount of availability of that iron. There's a little bit of debate about that, but I know we have good results, at least with the X Green product that we have with 4% iron in it, still sparking a strong color response. So, but we also homogenize that with an acidifying nitrogen source, ammonium sulfate. So, yeah, it's definitely fine. What I like to do is get things to a certain level of peak and then maintain it using iron. I don't like to peak it out with iron because you can't maintain it at that level of blue that the iron causes. So it's a tool in the toolbox. It's not a smoking gun by any means. Matt, you should consider merging. No, we're two separate entities in that regard. What is the best way to seed a large hill? Matt G. Probably the best way to do that is to cover it with some sort of erosion blanket. So I know when I did erosion control for a long time, we would use these coconut fiber mats that were, it was actually a textile that was woven with the coconut fiber, and we would put those on slopes. and depending on the pitch of the slope would determine the density of that textile, and also how tightly woven with the organic material that it was. And that is the only way I've ever been to successfully 100% of the time get a large seed project done on a slope. Is liquid biochar ever going to be a thing, Garrett Scott? No, it is not, because biochar in its porous structure would not be, one, it's not soluble in water, and two, you would lose out on that porosity and adsorbative nature of it. It's therefore making it just another liquid carbon product and not really capitalizing on anything that it's actually special for. Why is it so hot in East Tennessee at this rate? I'm going to be seeding until October. Man, that is a great question. Another 100-degree day today. It was brutal. Will lowering the pH tank mix of aerate by adding ammonium sulfate or vinegar have a detrimental effect on the liquid aeration? Ugly Weeds of Texas. That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I would reach out to those guys. Will the grass at Mile High Stadium grow faster when the Broncos watered the field after the Bears eked out last second? That's a good question. Hey, Matt, what's a good herbicide for quackgrass? Fluazafop. Matt, any tips for someone wanting to grow perennial ryegrass in the Knoxville, Tennessee area? It's the same zone as in Oregon where it grows, so it should be fine, right? No, John, we're not going to go down that road. But no, actually, Oregon is in 8A. We are 7B. And I know Oregon deals with much less humidity than we do in Knoxville. Therefore, their perennial ryegrass tends to do a little bit better than it does here in Knoxville. How about that? I have a newly renovated turf-type tall fescue lawn at my brother-in-law's house, and I'm still dealing with common purslane issue. How long should I wait to use post-emergent herbicide? After it's up for 2 weeks or something like that, go ahead and spray it. I normally don't get nervous spraying herbicide on top of new fescue. Fescue is incredibly tolerant of 2,4-D, so it just doesn't bother me. I just get out there and get after it. 2 weeks afterwards, no problem. Joseph Rotina, hey Matt, is it okay to water in 1801 Green Punch? I have no idea. I would think so. It's a fertilizer. I would reach out to those guys. That's not my product. I've never used it before. On the west side of my house gets mostly shade, some sun, about 3 hours of full sun. The grass is growing. I just can't get it to grow thicker. What do you think I can do to fix it? Unfortunately, you would have to change your turf types because once you start dipping below 4 hours of sunlight, then you start losing carbohydrate production. So you can either change turf types or you could get super experimental with T-Nex. Applying T-Nex will suspend the gibberellic acid production in the plant. And without the additional gibberellic acid in the plant, it may not be looking for as much sun. Therefore, it may not have to tap into its carbohydrates in order to produce the leaves needed to look for sunlight. So if I were in your position, first and foremost, what I would do is I would get on a strong preventative plant growth regulator program. Use an app like Greenkeeper to keep track of your growing degree days and see if you can't get it to hang in there. Matt, seeded turf-type tall fescue 3 weeks ago, having a breakout of crabgrass and some other weeds. Can I spray quinclorac or suggestions? Yes, you can, or Pylex or Tenacity. One of those. And go and if it's up 3 weeks and you're having weed issues, spray them out and get down some fertilizer. Do not hesitate to put down fertilizer. So I wouldn't think anything about it. Spray it out and get down some fertilizer. That way, any damage that does take place, it's growing vigorously and is ready to grow out of it. Real Lawn Lady says, tired of playing catch up with the weeds. Want to use a Priam. Been trying to get the lawn to fill in some still. Mostly broadleaf. Thinking isoxaben now, then when filled in, do prodiamine. Real Lawn Lady, I do not think isoxaben. Isoxaben is Gallery. Yes, you can do that and then prodiamine later. Absolutely. I like that idea. I think that's great. It's a green screen. Let's see. Hey, Matt, I live in Texas and have St. Augustine grass. What are the signs of maybe too much nitrogen in the soil or too low nitrogen? Or is it not that easy to tell? It's not that easy to tell. You kind of have to go on a timing thing, right? So you have St. Augustine, that would be tolerant of easily 4 pounds of nitrogen through the course of the year. So you have to calculate how much have you applied. And if you haven't applied any, then chances are it's probably going to be deficient, because nitrogen is quickly utilized by the plant, and anything that's left over moves out of the root zone really, really quickly. So if you haven't applied anything within the last 6-8 weeks, chances are you're deficient, and you have too low. So that would be the easiest way to tell, is based on your previous application. And then once you do make an application, 4 to 6 weeks later, as long as it's still active growing season, it's okay to go ahead and apply again. Yo, lucky I don't have a big enough ego. Rich, how's it going? I was reading about biochar, and depending on how it's made, it will either be acidic or alkaline. Which is the biochar in your product? Also, can you explain this process? Yes, I can. So what we use is a purely hardwood biochar, and we also do relatively medium temperature. So 650 C is what we do through gasification. We chose this particular biochar because it's pretty much run-of-the-mill, middle of the road on each of the different segments that it can capitalize on. So it can be adsorbative, but it isn't also extremely adsorbative to say something like corn stovers would be. It's relatively neutral in pH. And it's not quite as high carbon content as softwood would be, but it makes adding in nitrogen and balancing out your C to N ratio a little easier. It's high in cation exchange capacity, but not overly high in it. It's not as high as things like switchgrass. It's a little bit lower, but it also is a little bit higher in anion exchange capacity. But nowhere near as high, again, there as like corn stover. So we took something very balanced, middle of the road, that could appeal to each of the different benefits of biochar, without honing in on one specific positive, because I'd kind of rather capitalize on all the benefits instead of just one, be really good at one of them. I'd rather be good at a lot of things than great at one thing. Timing for starting back on PGR in regards to herbicide treatment. Hold off on PGR in case of turf damage from herbicide. Yes, absolutely. Once the risk of damage from herbicide is over, then you can get back on your plant growth regulator. Ash is usually rich in potassium. Yes, absolutely. You could do that. Yeah. Let's see. We went through a flood here this spring and everything came back fine, amazingly. There we go. It was underwater about 48 hours, 95% of it, just some remaining puddles. Then you'll be fine. 48 hours, yeah, it probably knocked things down, but by the time it dries out, things are going to be back to normal. So I wouldn't even sweat it. Just fertilize it, give it a little extra to get it going, and then call it good. But the question about seeding: should I apply Subdue Max to the ground before the grass germinates, or spray after the seed germinates? Lawn Fix, I would apply after the seed germinates. You can apply it on bare ground, but that would assume that you have a soil residual there. More so, where you actually want to plant is you want to protect the actual plant itself. You're not protecting the soil from Pythium, so you would want to apply it after it germinates. So typically what they'll do is they will coat seed, so that way the goal there is that immediately as it begins to pop out of the shell, it will come in contact with the mefenoxam and translocate it throughout the plant. Hey, Matt, may have missed your answer. Just in case, selective herb, grassy weeds in cool season. Yep, fluazepop. How long can seed survive without watering on a lawn during 85-degree heat? It can survive a really long time. In fact, it could sit there all summer long at 85-degree heat, and then once it starts getting rained on to the point of germination, that's when it'll germinate. So water dictates the seed, the safety of the seed. Temperature being out on a lawn doesn't mean anything. It's all about the water. Thinking ahead to snow mold prevention, I have Propaganda on hand. Should I get some Azoxy 2? Plan to hit the lawn before the first sticking of snow of the year. Man, I do not know, Gravy Lookout. I'm not super versed in snow mold, so I wouldn't be able to tell you. I'm not sure. I think propiconazole would be the way to go. I'm not sure about azoxystrobin and snow mold. Let me see if we can see anything here. A fresh look at fungicides for snow mold control. Let's see if we have any efficacy data here. See, Terraneb, Daconel, Weatherstick did really good. Banner Max did really good. Here, I will put this in the chat, and you have at this. This is actually going to be a really good read. Evan, I think you'll like it. Whoa, we jumped down. Lambert, you may be too late for the roll call, but you are still here in time for my heart. Okay, let's see. Let me hop down here. Hey, Robert. Robert says, sorry, Matt, I'm just worried about overdoing the magnesium. It'll be more than the soil test results call for. Would core aerating be a good idea before spreading lime, supple mag, or sulfur? At least for lime, yes. For sulfur, probably not. Or especially not the supple mag. Supple mag is going to be soluble. You'll be good to go. And if you do overdo the magnesium, not really a big deal. Just bag your clippings a couple times and you'll probably bring it down really quickly. Robert Butler says, plan on slit seeding, but just wondering if core aerating in conjunction with slit seeding would work it all in better. I want to aerate anyway, but running out of time. Yeah, you can. I mean, yeah, you can. I still think you're overcomplicating it. Just pick one thing, run with it, and get it done, and you'll be good to go. Can I use tenacity on a freshly seeded turf-type tall fescue renovation lawn to help keep weeds from germinating? Will it cause any negative issues for my grass seed to grow? Frank, it may bleach your grass for a little bit of time, but it should be okay. You should be fine. Just make sure you stay within label rates. I haven't put down any fert since 329. Would it be a good idea to... Toby, that is funny. My man, he wins right there. Toby Howard wins. I'm going to make you a moderator, and you are now the moderator for the channel for that one. You win the internet, sir. I've been trying to kill Bermuda grass completely. I use Roundup Quick-Pro, and it hasn't killed it completely. Nope, it won't, Marco. It's going to take years to get rid of it completely. That's just the way it is. Lushy dominated my lawn. Kurt Bow wants to know what's next. I need to tune into the Grass Factor. I'm going against the odds, boys. Seeded some Bermuda this week. Going to bust out the heat lamps later this week. Yeah, you're going to have to. Good luck, sir. Late seedings, especially with Bermuda grass, have not worked out in my favor. So keep up the good fight. Matt, what is your favorite grass type variety and why? It is zoysia grass. I'm sorry, Green Doc Ray. I really apologize, but it is my favorite. And it is my favorite because it was my first love when I was playing golf. I'll never forget that sensation of walking on zoysia grass. From a management perspective, it's really difficult. It poses some challenges. It keeps you on your toes. I have my management style of zoysia grass. I know someone like Ray has his own management style of zoysia grass. Everybody that manages it tends to develop their own relationship with it. It's finicky like that. But once you do grasp it, and it varies by region significantly. The way I managed it in Memphis is totally different than the way I managed it in Georgia. And I don't know. There's just something. It's truly a relationship you have when you manage zoysia, and for that reason, that's my favorite. Should I apply azoxy prop every 28 days for the summer? I'm tired of losing gains, but I worry about resistance. Man, I would too. That's a hard question to answer. I'll go ahead and say, until you can at least get it very established, yeah, I may go ahead and do that. Hey, Matt, growing in midgrass green. Hey-o, was able to mow at a 1/4 inch today. Just apply milo. I wonder if you have a good recommendation for a liquid fert. Yeah, whatever you can get your hands on. Just make sure it's balanced. If you applied milo today and it's bent grass green, get some potassium down now. If there's no potassium in milo, that's almost a 1-to-1 into P. No problem there, but you have to remember you're dealing with bent grass now, and you're going to be taking these at unnatural levels of height. You need to be applying right now, especially during a grow in, something like a 4 to 1 to 4 N to P to K ratio. And if you're mowing at a 1/4 inch, yeah, you can do liquid fert. You probably don't have to. But you need to be getting down at least a 1 to 1 N to K right now. Yes, yeah. Milo is just not going to cut it. If you can't find anything, just go get some generic 1010 and start applying that weekly at a low rate, maybe like 1/10 of a pound weekly or 1/4 of a pound every 2 weeks, something like that. What is the lowest soil temperature that FE will be taken up? I do not know what the lowest iron will be taken up, but it's not that low. It'd be warmer than you would think. Hill Seeding Futera Netless Blanket. SiteOne Landscape sells them. Otherwise, look for erosion control suppliers locally. There you go. There you go. Fescue hates Fusilier, though. Ask me how I know how. Now, the lawn stripes, I'm curious what rate you ran because, typically I did like 4 ounces per acre. Pretty low stuff. If the grass pulls out 2 pounds of K, but you return all your clippings, what's your best guess on how much of that K goes back into the soil? About 1/3 of a pound, Brandon. About 1/3 of a pound. Yes, mulching does return potassium to the soil, but very little, next to none. What month's temperature should I apply Carbon X versus X Green at? Depending on your soil type, the hotter it is outside, typically I would recommend something like X Green. The cooler it is, I would recommend something like Carbon X if you're dealing with cool season grass. If you're dealing with warm season grass, that would be flip-flopped. As it begins to get warm, I would be applying X Green, and then as it gets piping hot, I would switch to Carbon X. So just kind of like a general rule of thumb, September, October, November, December, depending on if you're in the transition zone or not, that's Carbon X. January, February, March, Carbon X. This, depending on where you are, this may be a little bit different. If you're in Michigan, this may bleed into May and June being able to apply Carbon X. But if you're in the transition zone, April, maybe even late March, late April, switching over to X Green would be the way to go. Hunter Hollis says coastal herbicide pre-emergent thoughts: imazaquin, prodiamine, and simazine. Sounds good. I like it. P.S. Thanks for sending me Facebook. Hey, no problem, man. No problem. I do not post on Facebook. Just a word of warning there. My wife just tags me and everything. Local N and P band ends October 1st. Already have the Carbon X ready to go. Woo! Hey, Matt, this hurts to ask. What's up with the discussion to us? Lushy, I do not know what you're asking there. I do not know. Disposition? Disposition? Come on, Lushy. Come on. What can I do to get rid of fescue clumps growing in the lawn and prevent? What can I do to prevent it? Well, it all depends on what kind of grass type you have, John. If you've got Kentucky bluegrass and you got fescue clumps growing in them, not a lot. You could blanket MSM, methylpyron methyl, but that's really about it. If you've got Bermuda grass, there's lots of stuff you can spray. You can spray Tribute Total, you could spray Monument, you could spray Revolver, you could spray Katana. All of them would take it out very, very well. What's the best way to kill plantain in my centipede? I would probably switch to Speed Zone Southern right now. Is there a way to prevent mushrooms in cool season turf? No, mushrooms mean you have a highly functioning, well-functioning soil. So that's a good thing. If you're trying to stop your mushrooms, you're trying to stop your soil from functioning at a high level. I've had to dethatch multiple times. I can't seem to get it under control. Is my thatch just super tangled? Is that a sign of shallow roots? Yes, absolutely. It could be. First thing I would do would be infrequent deep watering. Switch to that route. Make sure you are going deep. If you're watering and you're not seeing signs of water stress, then chances are for a homeowner type property in native soil, you're watering too frequently. If you have sand, obviously you can't do that, right? Because it's going to perk through so fast. But if you have any kind of soil structure at all, then if it never sees stress, then chances are you could be holding the roots too shallow. I will check it out and brace my wallet. Flutioxanil. Look at that. I do not know that. I have no idea what that is. Let's see. Look at Connor Ward hanging around in here. Check University of Wisconsin fungicide site performance website also for the snow mold trial data. Also check out Dr. Paul Koch from UW on Twitter, best snow mold pathologist in the game. There we go. OSU turf fan in here getting nasty. How can you tell the difference between dollar spot webbing and lawn spider mites? Okay, so spider webs. Okay, so when there are funnel weaver spiders, typically when you see the spots on the lawn of funnel weaver spiders, the turf is unaffected underneath. If you're beginning to see the mycelium from dollar spot, then you are typically seeing damage on the turf already. So they kind of go hand in hand. As the turf begins to go out, the mycelium begin to develop. Whereas that happens unilaterally, where with funnel weaver spiders, you can knock them off and the grass looks perfectly fine underneath. Also, if you feel it with dollar spot, it's going to feel greasy. It's not going to feel cottony. Is there a better grass than Zorozorja? I think not, he says. Can you get Zorja to dark green like Kentucky bluegrass? Yes, you can, but it's not good for the grass. What is the best grass for high traffic areas? It depends on what your management style is. There's a million different ones, but Gardner Earth guy says Bermuda for traffic. Yeah, Tiff Tough would probably be your best bet. Then Tiff Sport, probably underneath that. All right, everybody. Wait, hang on one second here. Lambert, the attorney, says, Matt, what do you think this Roundup nonsense is going? How do you think this Roundup nonsense is going to wind up? I'm seeing more and more pitchforks and torches on social media and lawyers in full propaganda mode. Sad. That's just it. I have no idea where this is going to end up. And my big fear is that they begin to come after the lawn care industry, pro applicators, pro turf managers. Start there and doing away with an industry that provides for a lot of families. It's a big industry in terms of dollars and cents, and for them to create this amount of fear over it, with the amount of pure fear mongering that has taken place, it's not. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know, and I don't want to speculate on it because I will go to a place of pessimism, and I'm trying to remain as optimistic as possible about it. So I'm not even going to entertain it, to be honest. Does setting old turf on fire and burning it out benefit the soil at all? Yes, you actually deposit some potassium back into the soil, plus some carbon too. Having woodchuck issues in the lawn. If a woodchuck could chuck wood, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? All right, everybody. I am going to call it. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Big thank you for Lushy. Lushy, I love you, brother. And Kurt Bow, I don't know who you are, but if Lushy loved you, I love you too. All right, everybody. I appreciate everything. Thank you for tuning in. I will see y'all hopefully next week. Take it easy. Issues in the lawn. If a woodchuck could chuck wood, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? All right, everybody. I am going to call it. Thank you for tuning in today. Big thank you for Lushy. Lushy, I love you, brother. And Kurt Bow, I don't know who you are, but if Lushy loved you, I love you too. All right, everybody. I appreciate everything. Thank you. And I will see you.